Bamboo, is you a nigga?
Yes, sir, Bob. Don Tootin', I'm a nigga.
Is you a nigga?
I'm a Sicilian nigga. Which means I'm more of a nigga than any nigga in here. Okay? Because you know what they say about Sicilians? We're darker than most niggas. We're bigger than most niggas. And we rap better than most niggas.
Even the lost souls who don't know that they niggas. They niggas too. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because niggas is a beautiful thing. Niggas is a beautiful thing.
I saw this video and thought I would play it for you. Hold on to your seats. She's going to take you for a ride on the road of American racism. The topic she gave in this lecture is called the fabrication of the nigger word. This is a must listen. She really breaks this word down in a way that made everyone look at how they approach life, social education, and language.
The fabrication of the nigger word and social complacency. Can everyone hear me? Good. I'm the newest motivational speaker who joined All One Speakers Bureau, a newly formed company that gives people with real-life experiences a platform to speak. I would describe our group as small, unorthodox realists who search for the truth through meditation, spiritual awakening, and self-actualization. This is my first presentation. Some of my colleagues and myself flipped a coin of who would present the next lecture. I lost the toss. I found out later it was a two-headed coin. Dean, Sadiq, and Elizabeth all chose heads, I chose tails. We all were sitting around the table talking, and just before I received the outline of the lecture to present, me and Sadiq locked eyes. He saw that I was nervous with worry and anxiety. I said to myself, there is no way I will ever touch this topic. They are throwing me in the lion's den. I even cried my eyes out at the thought of covering this one word. Then I came to the reality, my first presentation may very well be my last. Sadiq, the founder of All One, reassured me it would be okay, just do my research. Fast forward, most of my information came from understanding the English language rather than the unfortunate history of African Americans here in America. Since there is no real definition to this deplorable word, I found it quite easy to disprove its incorrectness as a 300-year-old glitch in American language. The lecture is titled, Complacency. The fabrication of the nigger word. Sadiq suggested I ask you before I get started. Can we please keep the messenger alive? Hey everyone, I'm glad to be here. I hope you wore grown-up panties and briefs. I want to address a word so commonly used today, nigger. This word has more definitions than Jeff Bezos has money. And because of cultural differences and environment, it also has several pronunciations. You'll hear nigger, nigga, Niger, or river. The word Niger, correctly pronounced Niger, is usually the alternative when you become a Muslim in prison. Both river and Niger are one and the same, a body of water in Central America. Then there's the famous N-word. The latter is used in a feeble attempt at political correctness. But I find it ironic, calling someone a river implies the same meaning as nigger, and the same implication applies to the term N-word. Those people using these terms means the same as the word itself. In my opinion, PC keeps all of us in a state of ignorance and mechanical thinking. This kind of ignorance is the obvious definition of hell. Can you imagine living in a hell created by the PC gods? Well, it's happening right before your eyes. I'm not here to offend anyone but educate both black and white people on the implication of the nigger word. I'll spare you the dark history and how this word came about. Many of you have ancestors that lived this dark part of American history. But I was somewhat amazed at how this word is used today among the young and old. So, I had to do a lot of research to understand why such an inflamed word to some, and meaningless to others, is used so casually. It took time to study and try and understand from all angles. During my research, I was invited to a dinner party. The man who threw the party was confident, sitting at a table full of white people, and told everyone an offensively racist joke. When he'd finished his joke, the dinner party was reduced from 10 guests to only 6. White people were offended. However, I remained at the table. The joke was not funny, and I don't think it was intended to make people laugh. But I learned something about behavior and language. This was a perfect opportunity to learn how a white person thinks about the nigger word. So, I asked the guy who told the joke, "What part of the joke is funny to you?" He looked offended, but I immediately put him at ease by telling him I study advanced psychology. When given the chance, I explore the language and behavior of people, and your joke gave me an opportunity to learn. I sensed he was somewhat apprehensive still. He stated, nigger was a normal word in his household as a child. His response answered so many questions. So, a few minutes into the conversation, I come to realize a profound truth. African Americans don't define the word nigger, but the word and its definition was shaped to define African Americans more than 300 years ago. So, when other cultures see a black person, they assume the same definition for every African American based on the definition of an assumed identity. The word nigger exists because people have been miseducated to believe somehow this word is designated to one group of people and that it also has value. Here's a fact. The word nigger is not a description of color or race of people. A child doesn't outline their drawing with nigger before they color. Nor can the sky become nigger before it rains outside. Therefore, the color black has no other description other than black, until someone of African descent comes along, then the definition of black changes and becomes offensive. We view a part of humanity by false narratives and historical practices where illiteracy was at its height. African Americans cannot be no more of a nigger than a one-eyed king, leading the valley of the blind to eternal bliss. Our language today is lost in a very old value system of the people who founded this country and established its laws and principles. In my research, I had to refer to a close friend who, by the way, is African American. She was dead set against the presentation. After a brief conversation, she hung up the phone abruptly. A few days went by, she called me back. To my amazement, she thought it would be good to share an unbiased point of view from a white woman's perspective. After a few detailed questions, I concluded education and communication is the barrier, not skin color. Education and communication are the bridge to link all races as one. We are recycling and acting out the same old information from many years ago. Everyone has their own agenda, and everyone is in survival mode. We're still having conversations about a word that doesn't apply. Are we reading the wrong books or watching the wrong videos? A footnote to the people of African descent. Here it is 300 years later, and you're ignoring the brilliant scholars, civil rights leaders, doctors, lawyers, and teachers that changed the trajectory of your future. But many of you have chosen to identify with the undervaluing of your culture, your mind, and your environment. For example, who in here has reflected on their childhood and still become angry over the childhood names you were called? When did you realize these were kids, and this is their mode of adolescent expression? As an adult, personal growth, education, and applied knowledge erases those emotional scars, and not be reinforced by unresolved grudges. I was a victim of parental bullying. I heard that word practically every day with the intent to hurt and build in me shame and low self-esteem. I was always told I act like one of those niggers out there, whatever that means. In remembering this from my childhood, this made my choice easier to present this topic. However, the difference in my life today and my life as a child is a matter of choice. In being honest, it is baffling to see adults become angry at the presence of ignorance. If you could just understand the language of our forefathers doesn't apply in our lives today. You see, the problem with this appalling word is, it has never been correctly defined, so it changes its definition. The skin color of African Americans ranges from cinnamon brown, mahogany, chestnut brown to caramel. Then you have quadroon, which is 1/4 African strain, and octoroon, 1/8 African strain. This is considered diversity. There is a magic to see how one culture has so many aspects of its beauty. We are not paying attention to the fact that when you mix black with any other skin color, you will observe how beauty evolves into some of the most beautiful human beings with African strain at its roots. You can't get a nigger from that kind of diversity. Many years ago, Webster's dictionary said nigger means black people or a person of African descent. You can still find those dictionaries laying around somewhere. We must let go of how we traditionally define others for the sake of history. When you go from a child to an adult, the past should be about reflection and change, not the practice of old ideas, philosophies, and behavior. The most recent Diagnostic Statistical Manual has clinical terms for adults who practice the same behaviors and language they heard as a child. I'm just saying. The language can remain the same, but you must change. As I close out, I would like to end in saying, white people, the choice is yours to make. However, it's confusing to watch you stand against this word, but your actionable stand supports the definition thereof. Your disgust shouldn't look like you're saying, I agree with your offensive description of African Americans, but that doesn't make it right for you to call them that. There is only one thing to do with the ignorant, that is, ignore it. Imagine knowing someone who purchased a pair of underwear and said they'll never take them off. 3 days later, you're curious rather they were telling you the truth. Then 10 years later, you try and erase the thought from your memory. This old language is now at the bowels of communication. Release the language or stay backed up like the intestinal brains that started base language communication. African Americans, the choice is yours to make. However, some white men came together to create a base language from laziness and complacency, and this ignorance trickled down throughout history. In 300 years, the world has changed over a few times. So, how does this word still have traction this many years later? And you can't blame generational ignorance. Too many of you are far too intelligent not to make your own choices as adults. If we are to change the world for the better, technology, religion, sex, and money is just a small part of our evolution. Thank you for listening. I hope you got something out of this lecture. We are all one.